Longevity Plus would like to thank you for joining our webinar today. Dr. Gordon is an expert on nutrition, mineral metabolism, and longevity. Dr. Gordon is a consultant to Longevity Plus, a nutritional supplement company based in Payson, Arizona, where he is responsible for designing effective, natural, non-toxic alternative supplements that help to support optimal health. Today, Dr. Gordon will be doing his talk entitled Stemming the Tide of Cancer. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Gary Gordon.
Welcome, everyone. Today is a bombshell. I hope you will listen carefully. It's my 76th birthday, and I'm able to tell you today that the lies that you've lived under about cancer are going to start going away. The exciting news is that Johnson & Johnson has announced that they have the ability to spot a single cancer cell in your bloodstream out of 1 billion healthy ones. And this will become available in your doctor's office, and already this test is validating everything I've been teaching for 15 years. Why am I so excited? Well, it's going to empower you to fire your doctor. I'm tired of the lies. And this test shows, for a very simple example, what I've always been teaching when I've been teaching the work of Dr. Kobayashi on my website. He is a molecular biologist, pathologist, oncologist, MD, PhD in Tokyo, Kobayashi. And everything he's been teaching is going to come home to roost, and it's going to be the end of the dominance over your life of the nonsense approach of surgery, chemo, and radiation as the only way to treat cancer. And so when you get this little, just a hint of what it's going to show, it says one little report. If you go online and read anything about blood tests to spot cancer, just read anything, you will find that men who've been told that their prostate cancer is confined to their prostate, in 67% of the cases that was a complete fabrication. That's what doctors had pretended was the story. That's where the nonsense starts. 67% of the time, those patients who've been told, oh, we got it all, or it's just in your prostate, so let's take your whole prostate out. 67% of the time, they can see the prostate cancer running around in your bloodstream, and now you can fire those doctors that want to give you crazy therapies that almost kill you, unless they can prove that by repeating the test the next day, that cancer cell that was in your bloodstream yesterday is gone. And that's the power that I have been trying to give the world for over 15 years when I've been lecturing and extensively and training and teaching about alternative approaches to cancer on my website. Just vitamin C alone is going to dramatically change these numbers. And when you realize on my website that you can watch the story of the man who'd been in a coma for 23 days, and the doctors came to the family and said, it's time to pull the plug and let Dad die. But this family wasn't your ordinary family. They weren't pushovers. They were willing to fight for their dad. They said, not until Dad gets 100 grams of vitamin C intravenously in the vein. After a lot of fighting, they gave Dad 100 grams of vitamin C, and within hours they could see a change. And of course, that soon-to-be dead Dad is now driving his tractor on his dairy farm. So what's the next shoe to fall? Well, the next shoe to fall is right out of Medscape Medical News. Radiation doesn't improve outcomes. Isn't that astonishing? That's why I refused to spend my lifetime studying and being a radiation oncologist when I was studying radiology at Mount Zion in 1964 in San Francisco. I said, no, I'm not going to fry people with radiation. And here's the study showing that the group who has been wasting their time getting fried with needless radiation for their breast cancer is almost identical outcome to the group given only tamoxifen. And wait until one day I can give you all the information you don't have now about why the herbal remedy from Thailand, HRT, available only through Longevity Plus, Pueraria mirifica, in a standardized form, in a tablet, is able to do for you more than tamoxifen, and it's all natural without any of the side effects. And when you learn more about what that's going to mean for anti-aging, you're going to be rather excited. So the game has got to change. But yet we have a health care crisis, and we have Congress wanting to get rid of Obamacare. In my mind, that's a good idea, because government never comes to the right conclusion. If you have a racehorse designed by a government committee, it will come out and look like a giraffe or a camel. So I really believe that we have a possibility of dramatically changing these costs that we're paying of $50,000, $100,000 for extending the lifespan in this country of cancer patients by 1 or 2 months, while these greedy pharmaceutical companies sell you these worthless drugs, which if only extending your lifespan for 1 month and you didn't feel good during the time you took it. It's a cruel joke. But do we want government making the decision for us? It was front page news last week that under the new regulations of Obamacare, apparently the death panels have come back to life. I'm quoting that exact words from the opinion page of the Wall Street Journal. And it was front page of the New York Times. So there are concerns. Who's going to make the decisions? It's a tough game, because the decisions they're making are all nonsense-based, since we are run by extremely greedy corporations who have had little of substantial benefit for our health, but have a racket going that if you don't do chemo, radiation, or surgery, too bad for you, because anything alternative like taking some mushrooms or agaricus or some really useful curcumin to lower the level of inflammation in your body, or using zeolite to get the toxins out, or just doing what has been proven at our own NIH by Mark Levine, every cancer cell with a high enough level of vitamin C starts to go into apoptosis and commit suicide and go away. So where are we going to go with this? Well, we have some very, very unfortunate agencies like the FDA, and I'm picking on them specifically because of the article written by Richard Passwater in the December issue of the Whole Foods magazine online. The name of the article is "The Importance of the Health Claims Victory and Global Censorship of Health Information." In this published interview, Jonathan W. Emord of Washington, D.C., who's won 7 cases in a row against FDA over the issue of what can I tell you about my product. If my product has selenium in it, and the research conclusively shows there are substantial benefits in reducing the rate of some cancers with selenium, can't I tell you that? No, according to FDA, you can't know. So if you were to read this article, The Importance of Health Claims Victory, you would be astonished that this attorney in a public document states unequivocally that the FDA told him to his face, "We don't care if you've won 7 trials against us over the right to provide truthful, meaningful information to the end user of a nutritional supplement. We will never buckle under to any of these courts." So the FDA is a rogue organization, entirely out of control. So there's going to be a need for all of us to get involved. If it becomes very clear, if any of you are thinking carefully, if you have a loved one that you don't want them pulling the plug on, and you go to my website and watch CBS 60 Minutes of New Zealand telling the whole story of the 100-gram intravenous vitamin C. I don't claim I can do all that when you're unconscious. I can't do that much by mouth. The by mouth vitamin C, which we have, which is truly the most powerful vitamin C for oral administration available anywhere on the planet without question, I don't claim that I can get it as high in the bloodstream as I can when I put it in your vein. But I can keep it high for a long time so you live a lot longer. So this becomes a very interesting topic, stemming the tide of cancer. I have news for all of you. What I've been really so excited about here is that Dr. Kobayashi's study, 10-year study on 10,000 patients, has already proven that if you would test people, let them know that they're having a little bit too much cancer, that responsible people would change their diet and their lifestyle. They would start to exercise. They would take the right nutritional supplements. They would do some detoxification in the sauna. They'd simplify their diet. They'd lower the stress in their diet. They'd get some more sleep. That's all we had to do, folks. And we have 10-year in the Tokyo area documented with blood tests each year. So are you going to be allowed to have a blood test every year for your cancer? Well, not if Obamacare has their way, because they have to have their health squads out there deciding what's appropriate and what's not. And any test that everybody on the planet's going to want, look at it, cholesterol is a very expensive test. And they're not going to be excited about letting you have your cancer screening test, but the test we did in Tokyo at that time was running around $500. And I did. To do it now, that same test, you'd have to ship it to Tokyo in dry ice, and that costs another $300. So we have our own test at caprofile.net, and that's the test that I have been using, which is not quite as sophisticated as the Dr. Kobayashi panel, but it's a little less expensive, about $370 or something. But the new test I'm telling you about today is going to put you in the driver's seat, because at this moment, all of your doctors can say they don't believe anything about the test like the phosphohexoisomerase, PHI, and the HCG test that we used on 10,000 patients in a 10-year study to keep them alive. They're going to ignore that. They say they've never heard of the test. So therefore, if we warn you that you have some cancer in your body, they can say, oh, go home, Dr. Gordon's crazy. But with this new test from Johnson & Johnson, it's going to be a little harder to get Dr. Gordon to go away. So now you're going to be empowered to tell them that you want to do something that makes sense. So let's look at it. The President's Cancer Panel tried to say we got to reduce the environmental risk. And that environmental risk is clearly what no government wants to talk about, because after all, they can tax the power plants that are putting all the coal up in the air, and they can tax all the polluters, and they can't get that much tax out of you and I. So do you think governments really, really are interested? If they were, wouldn't it become a covered test in this country that before we gave everybody a drug for their cancer or their dementia or their autism or their learning disorder, we would measure how toxic they are? Would that make sense, since all of these diseases have become epidemic exactly at the same time that we have polluted our planet? So this isn't anything very difficult to figure out. You know that I have answers to that with the power drink. We've introduced zeolite. High-dose vitamin C helps your body get rid of these things. The fiber is critical. The oral chelation that I have used so successfully now for nearly 30 years to stop all bypass surgery, all stenting, and been knock on wood, we see no fatal heart attacks or strokes when patients taking the Beyond Chelation improved. And now we've had to add more to it because we've all become more toxic. So a lot of people I now have add my power drink with the Beyond Fiber, the Bioenergy C, an organic green, and a glucosinolate detoxifier called Maca. But let's look at this. We now know that these doctors are crazy enough to tell you the best thing they can offer for you because they have a BRCA1 or BRCA2 gene is let's just cut the breasts off. Why don't we take your ovaries out when they're there? this barbaric nonsense is going to come to an end if I have anything to say about it, because it is clear that having a gene in your body from your family doesn't mean that you have to have the diabetes or that you have to have the cancer. The expression of that gene is controlled by your environment, and that's why there's 10 hours of information on my website, GordonResearch.com, for you to follow. And watch an hour on FIGHT, which is the overview of the multiple factors that cause us to be chronically ill, whether you talk cancer or dementia or premature aging or heart disease. It's all a gamish of the things that include the food, the need for food supplements, the I for the infection, the G for the genetics, H for hormones and heavy metals, T for toxins. And so if you really want your way out of this, don't think that having you continue to eat junk food and simply cutting off parts of your body is an intelligent approach. So the BRCA1, BRCA2 is a big thing, and it is all going to be shown to be nonsense, because all the people in our study in Japan had a very high incidence, as they do in Tokyo, of gastric carcinoma, which is another, in quotes, genetically linked disease. In other words, if your mother had stomach cancer, you're very likely to get stomach cancer. But that's just very likely. It doesn't mean you get it. You see, the problem is you, the patient. You continue to cheat and think, oh, I'm going to start exercising next year. Well, this is a new year, and it's a good time to start. Let's turn over a new leaf. If I had everybody listening to me right now, if they would sell you the test, which they won't, they're going to drag their feet, just like I have a heart test that will tell you absolutely whether or not you have any risk of dying of a heart attack. Just go to premierheart.com. You have to pay $300 cash, because of course Medicare is not going to buy this test for you, because everybody's going to want it. You see, if these two simple things. We have a new heart check. It's an EKG that is more accurate than an angiogram. Go to premierheart.com, and you don't ever have to worry about, I'm going to die of a heart attack, because if your number is bad, I'm a 0, meaning there's no obstruction of my vessels. But if you come back with a 6, yeah, you'll probably have a big heart attack within 6 months. But we can change it with all the things that I teach. And so what we're saying to you is that don't believe the nonsense they've been telling us, but go on my website and watch CNN Toxic America. Watch that 2 one-hour specials with Sanjay Gupta. Learn the truth. It's there for you to watch. These are the toxic states. This is mind-blowing when you go to any computer and put in the word 10 Americans, because the Environmental Working Group paid the money. It was $15,000 per baby for every baby selected at random on one morning not very long ago in America, and we sent the cord blood from the baby to the laboratory, a leading research laboratory, 15,000, and we found every child is loaded with neurotoxins, carcinogens, and endocrine disruptors, including things like dioxins and PCBs and polypropanate diphenyl ethers and bisphenol A and phthalates. You don't want to even know the name, but you do need to know. Because this is the real world. This isn't the phony world that you go to your doctor, he says, oh, I'm all worried about the lump. Let me get that lump out of there. Oh, we're going to save you. What a bunch of nonsense. If the prostate that they're telling you is just not in your prostate at all, like they've been pretending all this time, so they could tell you, oh, I got there in time, I'll take a whole prostate out. Well, this new test proves they're lying. It wasn't just in your prostate all along. Most cancers are not just in the local area they see. They're in the bloodstream, and this is going to blow all the lies apart. So you're going to have to figure out, how are you going to do to make your bloodstream always acting as a very, very careful immune surveillance system and find these individual cancer cells before they set up shopkeeping in your brain or your lung or some other place. So these are the chemicals. 134 are shown to cause cancer, 151 birth defects. These are what we measured. Now, if you want the cheap test for $4,900, you use Mount Sinai School of Medicine. We've proven that every child that we test is about 6 times higher than the parents, and the parents are loaded with these same things that cause brain cancer and cause autism and learning disorders and obsessive compulsive disorder and depression, but they're not going to tell you the truth. They're going to give you another drug to mask the symptoms. What nonsense. Another poison on top of a poisoned body. But that's where we're at, because that's government medicine for you. In government medicine, we're never going to use natural. We're not going to give you the high-dose vitamin C that would empty out a lot of people who are in the terminal wards. We're not going to do those things in government medicine. We're going to give you stupid drugs because the drug companies have paid their dues. They've bought the congressmen. They own Congress. They're going to be very careful to not make any waves so that these companies have billions of dollars invested in giving us these toxic drugs. Any drug, by definition, can kill you when you take too much. And even if you don't take too much, the journal, the AMA, says the drugs your doctors are giving you are the 3rd to 4th leading cause of death, and we believe that the truth is it's the most common cause. So breast cancer culprits, isn't it more likely that these toxins, but they're going to deny it and deny it until you meet Samuel Epstein, who's a passionate PhD researcher, and he's lectured to Congress on this and written books, but they don't want to hear it because they have to continue to live on taking the money that buys them their next seat in Congress from the very company that helps put the poison in the air. So Ralph Moss is a really straight shooter with CancerDecisions.com. If you are stuck with a difficult cancer decision, I do helpfully give consultations 1 hour long for $300, which we then recommend you spend $100 to have it typed up so you have a document to learn from. And I strongly recommend that people use Ralph Moss, who's a researcher who will absolutely tell you everything that's good and bad about any approach that they're going to give you, whether you're at Hopkins or you're at Columbia School of Medicine. He doesn't care. All he wants to do is just tell them what they plan to do. But we know this country is not going to agree that pomegranate can tell you that pomegranate is better than most of the drugs they're giving you, because there's no money in it. You can't tax a fruit company enough to get the money that you can out of the drug and the surgical interest. They'll pay big bucks so they can now fry your prostate to the tune of $40,000 a man because Medicare is paying for it, without a shred of evidence that that approach is any better than watchful waiting. But this way they got your 40,000 bucks. But it's our 40,000 bucks. This is why our country is going down the tubes, because they don't mind greed is bankrupting the system. And the problem is you don't know all this, and so you'd say, well, if it's in the White Tower and it's 40,000, I want to have my radiation to my prostate, even though it's not doing anything significant to you, when we can prove to you that there are all of these alternatives. And now that you're going to soon, not today or tomorrow, have the new Johnson & Johnson test. Today you can get the caprofile.net test, or the test that's called U-Test-U, and you go to utestu.com. That's Y-O-U, test Y-O-U, for $150. So all I'm saying is that if you thought to test yourself and your test didn't come back perfect, you don't jump off a bridge, and you don't let them go and cut your breast off or cut your ovaries out or take your uterus out or take out your stomach. The first thing you do is say, I wonder if the test could maybe look a little bit better in a few days if I did some of the choices that Dr. Gordon loves to have people know about. And those tests are ones I've been using with great success for a long time. But we hate to spend the money to find organic food, and it's hard to raise the food ourselves. But here's Time Magazine telling you that you're way ahead when you buy organic eggs, milk, beef. They're admitting it. And then we have this nonsense about this high fructose corn syrup that all of you by now should begin to read labels, and don't let your kids have this stuff. It's been in every soft drink, and it's actually definitely increasing the incidence of premature aging, diabetes, and immune system impairment. And of course, when you have a corrupt FDA that's on the take and has no desire to deal with truth, it took a long time to get them to even admit that bisphenol A has anything wrong with it. And obviously, the day will come that that becomes real obvious, that there is a lot of toxins, but those toxins are being put in the water, food, and air by people who are paying a lot of money to keep on putting it. Now, there's some new things about lung cancer, and it's very exciting. NYU Medical Center their cancer division was doing an excellent program yesterday on Dr. Radio, Sirius Satellite 114, and they were pointing out that there's some new genetic tests they can do if they can get a piece of the tumor for some lung cancers and very, very effectively for some melanomas. That's markedly enhancing what they can do by knowing the uniqueness, because a lung cancer that looks the same under the microscope in two different patients is dramatically different in its responsiveness, but you no longer are going to be waiting to see if you can have that expensive new gene test. Once Johnson & Johnson releases a test that shows the cancer that's in your bloodstream. When you have cancer in your body, it's always on the move. And so now, instead of having to keep on putting needles in you and taking out a piece of your liver to see if the liver is cancer in your liver, and taking out a piece of your lung to see is that, we just are going to take a blood test. This is a revolution, and it's happening on my 76th birthday. Now, we're very concerned about the little bit of problem Monsanto thinks they can genetically modify everything, so maybe the crop is bigger, but it's such nonsense, because everything I have read makes it very clear to me that genetically modified food carries great risk, because what they mean when they genetically modify it is that they actually have made the food carry in it a pesticide. So when you eat that food, that corn, you're eating a pesticide. Now, somehow, there's something about my body that doesn't really make me think I have a pesticide deficiency. And I know it disturbs the gut, and I know the gut is where death is starting on our population. And look at all the people with so-called GERD or gastric reflux or whatever you want to call it. The epidemic is partially because everyone's going to have to be on a good, healthy probiotic, and the probiotics can't work alone if you don't support them with a good fiber like Beyond Fiber. There is no fiber on the market that compares with the Beyond Fiber that I use in my power drink, where I add our special high-potency advanced vitamin C delivery system I call Bioenergy C, that gets higher levels of vitamin C into people than you can achieve with any of the other C, and you can prove that by getting a urine test to measure how much C is in your urine at all times. And if you want to live with your cancer, all you do is buy the C-Check test. It costs you $10, and the stick has a green color on it. And when you urinate on it, it needs to go to a yellow color in a minute, or you are not in the optimum range that vitamin C can do to help you detox and live longer and stay younger. So here's an idea that something might cut down some of the cancer incidence, and that's a little story about infections. Now, you all know that I preach with my food infection genetics heavy metal hormone toxin, my fight concept to stay healthy. I try to preach a very simple idea. One of the reasons we all have chronic inflammation, which is why I recommend that you take anti-inflammatories like Wolbenzheim if you already have cancer, and add curcumin and other things. But if we want to deal with the problem of these infections, we have to know that the testing alone to see who's got Lyme and who doesn't costs a bloody fortune. And when you just read the literature, in Harvard says most people, 80–90% of them, like you sitting there in front of me right now, have cytomegalic virus or some kind of herpes. And most of us have some of the thing called Candida. Now there's the new one, XMRV, the new AIDS, which seems to be in most men who have prostate cancer, and is in most of the people who've got chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. So why do I make such a big deal? Because I have answers. That high-dose C alone will help you fight chronic infections, but we have things like silver or short-term use of high-dose vitamin A and the other immune support. I teach everybody how to deal with these multiple factors, because that's why there was not going to be a magic bullet. But if you listen carefully to me, you will wind up using your Johnson & Johnson test when it becomes clinically available, maybe a year. When the test becomes clinically available, all you want to do is, when you do that test, you don't want any cancer cells being seen running up and down through your body in the bloodstream. So infections are part of what I teach, and for that reason, I will be teaching with my group that I co-founded, the American College for Advancement in Medicine, ACAM, at a combined seminar with the American Holistic Medical Association and with the Institute for Functional Medicine, as well as the Environmental Medicine and the Integrative Medicine in Minneapolis, middle April. We'll be teaching about oxidative medicine. Now, I can do some oxidation when you use the advanced form of silver called ACS 200, but I have other ways of lowering infection in your body. But ACS 200, when I combine it with a couple of treatments that we call ozone and ultraviolet blood, I can drop the titer from hepatitis 95%, the titer from AIDS 95% with about 4 treatments. So there's ways to do these things, but this XMRV was such a major problem now that they're talking about what are they going to do with the blood bank. So they took many years before they decided to test all the blood supply for AIDS. Now they might have to measure the xenotropic murine leukemia-related virus. What a big name. X, murine, M, leukemia-related R, virus V, XMRV. Now front page news that it's real. But that's what I'm teaching if you go and spend time on my website. FIGHT, there's an hour on infection, an hour on genetics, an hour on heavy metals. So we want everybody to know that this is part of the reason that we have to win the fight. And that's why, even if they laugh at you and say, what are you taking all that expensive vitamin C for? Dr. Gordon's vitamin C is the most expensive vitamin C on the planet for one reason. It's the only one that keeps the urine test for level of vitamin C in the urine in the yellow zone, which is 100 milligrams of C in your urine, which means that you have the highest possible level that you can achieve by oral administration of vitamin C. When you want better results, we do want you to visit our doctors and take some treatments intravenously to clean out your body for a while with some IVs, but it's what you do after you leave the office and have the IV vitamin C that counts. So the chronic fatigue, yes, it's part of the thing, but it's just because we have candida or these infections, and now silver actually has been shown to tie up some of these AIDS infections, and it does interact with these things, and we want everybody to realize then that ACS 200 is life-saving. You should not have a home that doesn't have 2 4-ounce bottles on the bathroom shelf. Why? Well, if you own anything, if you own a dog, the dog gets injured, you want to spray it. Your child gets injured, you want to spray it. A horse gets injured, spray it in the eye. Spray it in your eye. It'll stop the conjunctiva. It is safe to put anywhere. And yet when we have a dog that's in a coma, that's near death from very, very serious necrotizing fasciitis, the vets had given up. The animal was in renal shutdown. He was going to die in 2-3 hours. We took the silver and we just put it in a turkey baster and put it down the throat of the unconscious animal, and the dog came back to live and fight another day. You can do that with your relatives in the hospital if you just sneak it in. There's no contraindication, but they have you all hornswoggled. They pretend that they have the real medicine. That's the pretense. The zeolite is not just a treatment for stopping diarrhea. This is right from the website of the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. They tell you it's being used now for its anti-cancer properties, and we strongly recommend. We have 2 kinds of zeolite, ACS, and we also have the Zeo Gold. Now the Zeo Gold, 1 capsule is the equivalent of an entire bottle of ACS, of ACZ, but we start on the low dose so that you don't have a Herxheimer cleansing reaction and your body starts to open the pathways. Many times we're going to have to add a heal product called Detox Kit with things like berberis and lymphomyosat to assist you in your body's ability to push the toxins out. And of course, sweating in a far infrared sauna is great, as we proved in our 10-year study following cancer tests. Tumor markers that always got better on every patient over a 10-year period in Tokyo when we had you do the simple things and go to my website and put in the word Kobayashi, K-O-B-A-Y-A-S-H-I, and read the article. We'll tell you exactly the details, what the test was and how we treated them. But zeolite is going to reduce cancer risk because, after all, it's going to be not just fighting the cancer by letting your immune system come back to life. It's tying up the toxins that are making your immune system unable to work effectively. And remember, so much bad stuff comes into us through our mouth and through our intestine. So if you are taking the Zeogold that I recommend, 1 capsule twice a day, you open the capsule and put it in a couple ounces of water. Then you can put it in your mouth and drink it, or you can add it to my Power Green drink that has in it my organic green, my Beyond Fiber, my BioNGC, and has in it the very important product of the zeolite. So if we then look at it, we're losing the war, and this is pretty obvious to anybody who's looking at it. And these drugs that they want to sell you, these wonder drugs, are a complete fiasco. There's so few people being helped, and the cost is so high, and they're being given to people so late because this country is not going to allow you under any Obamacare to practice any of this kind of medicine. Medicine that I'm talking about is the medicine of the future, and it needs to be put into your mind that what I'm talking to you about today is wellness medicine, and you better just think this thing carefully. If you expect your health care to pay for anything I'm talking about, then you are having a daydream. You need to know that when you buy fire insurance on your house, they never pay 1 cent until the fire occurs. If you spend a fortune each year getting rid of all the weeds next to your house, making sure the fire hydrant works, making sure there's no oil rags next to the fire, no one pays you a cent for avoiding the fire. But if you think it's a good deal to collect your fire insurance, then you are deluded. What you want to do is you want to practice wellness medicine. And what I'm really focused on is the whole concept of ultimate wellness. And part of that is going to be part of you having freedom from the fear of dying of a heart attack or cancer and stroke. And that's all. Those I've eliminated with my programs, well covered in the 8 or 9 hours of webinars on my website. So these guys that are going to give you this chemo for $6,000, $7,000, these guys, that what they're doing, the amount of benefit versus the risk of what they're doing when they use these treatments and give them to you for unapproved uses is just a general ripoff. And you won't know that until you spend more time. And as I said, Ralph Moss is a good researcher. He'll be glad to have you look at the junk that they want to sell you for your cancer and give you what the real skinny is. Because if you knew up front that they were only treating you because they think that they're preventing you from falling into the hands of the quacks, and they know up front that you're not even going to live 1 week longer, but they want to entertain you while you die. That's not a nice game. And that's kind of what's going on. They often know their treatments have no value and that you're simply going to die. But we can change that with this new test. Now you're going to be in power. You don't have to believe anybody. Your test either shows the cancer that was in your bloodstream yesterday has to start going down, the numbers tomorrow, and then you don't, and if it doesn't go down very fast, you can say, well, I wonder if Halon would have done that any faster, or poly-MVA, or if I should have used the artemisinin, or maybe I should have used cordyceps, or agaricus, or some of Dr. Gordon's other tricks to stimulate my immune system, or just even vitamin K. I mean, there's so many things that we have choices today. So as we start looking at the drug approval system, the nonsense that's been going on where they spend $1 billion to get a drug in the system because they know they can milk Uncle Sam for $1 billion or $2 or $3 billion to give you a worthless drug like the statins. You don't need a statin. All you need to do is buy a really good Delta tocotrienol. We have it at Longevity Plus, and we're happy to have you use it. You don't need their drugs because they all have side effects, but they aren't going to make that clear to you that there's a meaningful choice. And of course, it's not what we call a level playing field, because they lie and they wind up pretending that they're the only answer out there to improve your cholesterol or your blood pressure. That's all patent nonsense. But they have you because when you stick with their drugs, which are all poisons, they, depending on the dose, obviously, they know that you are going to fall for it because you get it covered by your insurance. So look at lung cancer, $300,000 to $800,000 for a year of therapy, and your and my tax dollars are going to pay for it. That's why they're talking now about, are these really going to be death panels coming back to life? That's the headline Thursday of the opinion page, December 30th. That would be the Wall Street Journal, page A15, and you're talking to Mr. Rivkin, an attorney in Washington, D.C. that was under President George Bush in the Justice Department. So mammograms, they're nonsense. They're just putting more radiation into your breasts, and there's no way that that's considered a treatment. And of course, their inaccuracy is widely known. They miss the real cancers, and they detect things that aren't cancer and put you through a lot of fear. When thermography, which is not perfect, at least wakes you up to the fact that you might want to do something. And what would be something? Well, every woman will do better with iodine. The need for iodine today is huge. We might need as much as 15 milligrams of elemental iodine a day as a supplement. Sometimes when we just paint a woman's breast with Lugol's 2% solution, it's all red for 2 hours, but the body soaks it up. So we like things that will make your tests get better, but we like tests that are not dangerous, that you can repeat as often as you like, and nothing could be better in that regard than what I'm announcing today from the front page news about Johnson & Johnson's test. Now, we do know that patients have been lied to left and right, and the ductal carcinoma in situ, DCIS, is a ripoff because it's not cancer. It's a pre-cancer, and yet they put women through all this radiation, which we now have proof is a waste of time. So, you know, it is so sad that we have people living in fear in a whole system of medicine where doctors get out of school, they're in debt for $200,000. If they make waves and say something different than what they were brainwashed to practice when they were going through school, they will be cut out of the system and lose their license. So it's hard. So I think we need to do like China did. They had the Chinese barefoot doctor. I'm going to call for a crusade of health coaches that have no vested interest in whether you have surgery, radiation, or chemo, but really want to help you get your blood test in their ideal ranges. So thermography, I love and I use it, and it will miss some things. Everything does, but it will do you no harm, and those that don't look healthy will take simple action, and if they're a little bit more concerned, they'll do the $370 test at caprofile.net or the U-Test-U cancer test, and they'll find out is that there's something in their breast, something that needs to be addressed. But you don't have to address everything the next day with cancer surgery, because if you look at Kobayashi's work, he shows that whatever lump or bump we finally are able to feel and find in your body, whatever lump or bump, it's already been in your body almost 7 years before we find it with our crude methods, including our CAT scans, which are better. They're better than the X-ray was. But I'm just having you understand that this is a very complicated thing. This is a tumor in a breast. The more you identify what this is, and we have a big fight over the cancer-specific antigen, PSA, that many men have been needlessly biopsied year after year over this test, which is overreading what this test can do. And fortunately, this test is going to be replaced soon, I hope, by Johnson & Johnson with a single test showing you what is really going on, because with 2/3 of patients who thought by their best judgment of their doctor that their prostate cancer was limited to their prostate, they now find that it's already in the bloodstream, then we know that everybody's been being lied to. Now, epigenetics is really important. It means a change in your genetics overnight. So you can say, wait a minute, doc, nobody in my family ever had diabetes. There was no autism. There was no depression. There was no psychosis, no schizophrenia, no cancer. Makes no difference. With the ability of your body to respond to things like bisphenol A, as proven by Randy Girdle at Duke University Medical School and heavily talked about on the internet and on the web under agouti mice turning from brown to yellow, then you will know that there is a real problem in your not being able to keep up to date because the genes are changing, and so they can't make this big case they're trying to make, but we can turn them back with supporting the methylation, which is why the vitamin C that we give you has in it trimethylglycine and methylsulfonomethane, and we put as many people as willing to do so on sublingual methyl B12 and sublingual methylfolic acid. We like methyl because it fights back against what happened to your body when you were drinking out of those plastic bottles and getting not just the phthalates, the plastics, but the bisphenol A that has been proven to lead to a permanent change in methylation. Now, your doctor doesn't understand a lot about that, but my good long-term friend for 30 years, Jeffrey Bland, has an Institute for Functional Medicine, and you can take any mainstream doctor who wishes to remain current and send him to a meeting of IFM, and this link will show you things about cancer that none of your doctors understand, but Dr. Bland, who's open and helps teach what exact kind of things I'm teaching, with Mark Hyman as the CEO of IFM, being a practicing physician with many, many references on the website. Go to Mark Hyman, MD, and you'll be stunned. He has a recent case completely reversing autism in days. He's got 2,000 patients recovering from diabetes. What are we doing that's different? IFM and my group that I organized, ACAM, and the group that was founded by Dr. Norman Shealy, a Harvard-trained neurosurgeon, called the American Holistic Medical Association, and the group that is so critical to our future, the American Association of Environmental Medicine, AAEM, and then the Institute for Integrative Medicine, IFIM. These are groups all meeting in Minneapolis in mid-April, where I'll be lecturing about oxidative medicine. But this slide would show you things about a cancer cell that would be very exciting. And this is my long-term friend and mentor, Dr. Kobayashi, who as an MD, PhD, molecular biologist, pathologist, oncologist, can run circles around any doctor that you're relying on to give you so-called honest information about your cancer, because none of them know enough to put down what Dr. Kobayashi proves, but they can't get rich on his system because he didn't need any drugs. He didn't need any $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 treatments. And so they don't have any interest in what's on my website, but you go to these websites and learn the truth. The truth will set you free. So patients are living 20 years free of cancer, and we have such good success using a far-infrared sauna, simplifying the diet, lowering the stress, taking immune support. This is all that I teach, and this is his proof that the cancer starts 7 years before it becomes first palpable. And so the doctor gives you that worried look, oh, you're going to be in the hospital tomorrow, oh, I found a lump. What nonsense, what lying nonsense. That tumor has been there for 7 years. You have time to learn your options. These guys aren't saving your life. They are lying when they say, I think I got it all. How many people have been told they got it all, and 5 years later it's throughout their whole body? That's such nonsense. You can't cut it out. Cancer is a systemic disease, as proven by today's headline story. It's in your bloodstream. Even when they try to pretend, oh, I got there in time, it's not going anywhere. It's all been a lot of lies. So here's the blood test that we call the Kobayashi panel. And it was tests like CEA and alkaline phosphatase and ribonucleic RNase and sialic acid, and the ferritin, and then heat shock protein, CA19-9. These are tests that any doctor could do. We just don't have them as a panel for the mere sum of $500 available in our country. And because they're so good at doing it, I had to wind up sending blood by dry ice, which though dry ice brought the cost of $300 to ship it. But we have all of this well-known and proven thing that the detoxification therapy always moved everybody from high risk, where we would have seen a tumor or a lump or a bump in another year or two in your lung or in your prostate or in your brain or in your breast or in your stomach. We would have seen the tumor, but we turned it off. So the cancer profile in our country does the HCG 3 different ways, and the phosphohexoisomerase test. And this is a test for anaerobic metabolism, going all the way back to what we knew is that the cancer thrives in an ischemic area where there's not a lot of oxygen. And that was a Nobel Prize some years ago on this topic. But we're going to measure your DHEA, and we're going to optimize your thyroid. And so many people are going to have iodine because there's bromine in our bread, there's fluorine in so many of our processed foods, and these are destroying thyroid. So people don't feel good in our country. They're tired. So you have to learn all of these things. This is the other test. This is the U-Test U test. And U-Test U is pretty exciting. They're 96% accurate, right, on liver, whether it's sensitivity or specificity. So there are tests, and these tests are not bad news. You don't want to run away to some surgeon and say, what do you think of my test? He wants to get it. He sharpens his scalpel the minute you walk in the room. we're telling you that cutting out of tumors is a little late in the game. I don't mind taking an easy tumor that I can take out easily, but I don't want to have you maimed, and I sure don't want you going on chemo and radiation unless your test continues to show that you can't practice what I preach. If you will take the supplements, I'm now taking 37 different bottles twice a day, and I've added to my regime the use of a powerful, exciting, new magnetic modality, a device that doctors can buy for $20,000, and some patients have bought them because they got out of the wheelchair after they treated themselves for a couple months. But this amazing PMT-100 is a pulsed electromagnetic field device, which we've had some 30 years ago. Papimi in Greece was using it to treat cancer. And I'll be putting on a large conference on April 3 through April 7 at the Buttes, which is a wonderful resort hotel minutes from the Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix, and it's a beautiful week to be there. And we will be lecturing on Thursday night starting at 4:30, and we will have more lectures all through the week and ending Monday night. Come in for one day for $100. Come in for the whole conference for all 5 days for $345 for the public. The doctors are going to have to pay a total of $475 for all 5 days. But they get continuing medical education credits. So if you really want to learn where the future is going to be, we're going to be showing you a way to eliminate amputating feet in diabetics. We're going to show you things that you have not seen before that. Please stay tuned. I will be lecturing also in Orlando, Florida at the Institute for Integrative Medicine, IFIM, and that's at a Hilton Hotel in Orlando, and that will be at the end of this month, where we have a large number of doctors wanting to learn more about this whole field of integrative medicine. So if we look at metastatic non-small cell lung cancer, there is some very interesting things when the end does come in people, and I'm not saying that we're God, and some people are clearly going to die. But bottom line, I can assure you, I know what we're doing in Germany, and I know what we're doing in Asia, South America, Mexico, and America. I can tell you that any patient who's lucky enough to not get stuck in the mainstream medicine, we will always beat the results you would have had with radiation, chemo, and surgery. Without question, we have all the numbers to document that. Sometimes we're only twice as good as they are, so if they only have 25% survival at 5 years, we'll have 48%. But we have all that documentation, and I have that, and all health care professionals are told by me to go to my website and join my FACT, my forum on anti-aging and chelation therapy at no cost. It's the leading school of alternative medicine, free to anyone who believes they're a health professional. That, in some cases, a nurse. In some cases, it could be somebody who's been a retail health food store operator. In some cases, it could be somebody who lectures in college on health. Healthcare professionals are not just MDs. And it's free to anybody who's a healthcare professional to join my FACT. Once you're there, you'll get 3 emails from me every day. Those emails will bring you up to date on new things like what I'm teaching you in today's webinar, and that will also let you know that I'm building the database, so you don't have to bother to read it, never bother to save what I send out, because it's always there in your school. So you want to know how many people we've helped with autism, or what our success is with diabetes, and why it's so easy to treat multiple sclerosis, and why I haven't had a patient die of a heart attack in over 20 years, and how every child with ADHD must be changing the diet and must have the lead and the other toxins out. All of that is covered if you join FACT and you save your password and you search on a topic, because remember, we won't burden you with more than 3 new emails a day. But we live in a time frame that knowledge is doubling every 2 years, and unless you know what we know in our 2,800 and growing membership of FACT, which are international healthcare professionals, you will have missed some major knowledge, and you'll be living on yesterday's bad information unless you join FACT, get your password. If you're too busy, don't read the 3 emails that come out each day, but when you're stumped, take out your password and put in the word lead or mercury or autism or breast cancer and see what has been said by your 2,800 colleagues around the world. So anti-aging medicine, proves that vitamin K can slash cancer risk. Garlic dramatically helps. I wouldn't go a day. That's what my whole Beyond Chelation Improved, my 9 pills that has eliminated all fatal heart attacks and fatal strokes in my practice for over 20 years, and I cancel bypass surgery and stenting on every patient. This is because garlic is part of the omega-3, the fish oil, which is part of the EDTA, which is part of the mucopolysaccharide that works like heparin. And so when you begin to get an idea, there are many things that you want to be on. You're not going to be crazy enough unless you were as sick as I was at age 29 when I had to close my medical practice because I had to sit. I couldn't walk any steps. And when you're that sick at age 29, you'll do what it takes. And now at age 76, I can ride my bike up and down nice mountains. I think that I'm happy that even though I'm not an efficient organism, I take all these nutrients because I wouldn't survive on the nutrients that many other people handle because of some inborn errors of metabolism. But look at the bottom one. Broccoli, it is a diindolylmethane. It's I3. It is a very important part of the detoxification of many of these chemicals that are in all of us. In green tea, drink it, use it. In omega-3, it's vital. It's part of the 9 pills. If I didn't have omega-3, I couldn't have stopped all fatal heart attacks. Believe me, even though we spent $10 million in the 60s working with Lester Morrison to figure out how to make my 9 pills work like heparin so no one has to be on Coumadin that I deal with. Anybody on Coumadin wants to get off, go to my website, put in the word Coumadin. And why is that important? Because cancers metastasize to a new location in your body when the blood is thick. But I have the safe answers. My oral chelation, which has in it the omega-3, and has in it the garlic, and has in it the EDTA. My oral chelator works to replace the need for Coumadin, and for those people who have seriously thick blood, we add another enzyme, which is called Buluki or lumbrokinase that comes from the Japanese earthworm. But curcumin turns down the level of inflammation, and I told you, you all have some infection. You don't necessarily, you're not going to remember XMRV or cytomegalic virus, but that one's herpes related. Or candida, you'll remember that. But these are infections you've got. And with curcumin, I can lower the amount of fire that's causing some of the damage in our body. So curcumin is absolutely, provably going to do better than many of the drugs they tell you they're going to give you in a last-minute effort to keep you alive. Now, here is a simple example of things that you can take that will dramatically cut down how soon cancer patients die by just getting the right supplements. And this is from a book by Abe Hoffer and Dr. Linus Pauling, Healing Cancer. And so these things, if your doctor says it's a figment of your imagination, you're wasting your money, you're just going to have rich urine, you might want to replace that doctor and find somebody who's a little more up to date. High-dose vitamin C is still the first place you go because you can't go wrong. It's not going to cure your cancer, but it is doing you no harm. And it clearly helps take toxins out because it's the poor man's chelator. Vitamin C, when it leaves your body, is taking bad stuff. So you don't just have rich urine when you test with my vitamin C test, the little stick that I want you to urinate on every couple of days until you know that you're keeping your urine in the yellow range. The yellow range is the ideal range to live a long time, whether you're fighting cancer or you're just fighting aging. But we understand how vitamin C is working now to actually kill the tumor. And we can tell you that vitamin C will slow the tumor growth in any animal. And we know that it fights cancer as shown by the United States Department of Health and Human Services with Dr. Levine. And so Dr. Levine, Mark Levine, Chief of Molecular Clinical Nutrition, Senior Staff Physician, is the one that did all the studies to find there was no cancer that vitamin C in high enough dose would not slow down dramatically. So when they say there's nothing else can be done, they're not telling you the whole story. So pharmacologic, that's when I give the vitamin C in the vein, that's higher than you can get by mouth, acts to actually function inside of a tumor as though you had put hydrogen peroxide in there to blow the tumor up. You see, if you take silver and hydrogen peroxide, that will make for you a rocket. It's called rocket fuel, hydrogen peroxide and silver. So you can see where I'm trying to take you with all this information today, that ascorbic acid is going to be very hard on all these breast cancer cells. This is on my website. If you go there, this is the 56-year-old male that was supposed to die. He'd been 23 years in total life support. And you would have, in America, with the death penalties, that's not a nice word, I admit, but at least it puts it in context. Under the new regulations that they have put in place under Obamacare, the head czar of all health in this country is going to have to make decisions. And are you going to spend $1 million a day to keep somebody alive an extra day? Obviously, we're going to have to make some sense out of it. But are you going to pull the plug on people that all they needed was a big dose of vitamin C? Orally would have helped, but you can't give it to oral when the man's in a coma. And they don't give you vitamin C in any hospital unless you have. The Cancer Treatment Centers of America would in this country. They would. They're unique. They at least believe in these things. But this whole process of how dangerous are the drugs they're giving you, if you really knew all this, if you knew that it is, in my belief system, the drugs your doctor prescribes for you are probably the most common cause of death. Whereas if you want to cure the incurable, as this MD, attorney, cardiologist, writes with 1,200 references, vitamin C is your answer to curing the incurable, and here is the test. You buy VitaCheck C, you open the jar, you get out a little stick with a green tip, and if you can't get that wet and look in 1 minute and pull it to that yellow, and I find virtually no other vitamin C product on the market will keep you yellow 24/7 with taking it as little as 1 slightly pink teaspoon 3 times a day. Now, I currently take 1.5 teaspoons twice a day in my power drink, where I take it with my fiber and my green and my maca, and then I take my zeolite, and that way I only have to take it twice a day because I know what all those other things are doing. And when you learn what the maca will do for raising your and balancing your hormones, and when you learn what organic greens will do to help pull these toxins out, and when you really see what my fiber is, it's beta-sitosterol, octocosanol, gamma-oryzanol. My fiber is a miracle, and it supplies the needed fuel for the healthy bugs, microflora, that have to live in your intestine. I still have to take my Chiodophilus every day. You have to have Acidophilus every day because they've poisoned our food supply so much that the healthy guys can't grow because the pesticide. After all, if Monsanto says to the farmer, you won't have to buy a pesticide, we build it into the food, I don't think I'm very anxious to eat their food, but they're going to keep selling it, and they're hard to stop because we have the best Congress that money can buy. Is our health care really the best? No, we all know it's not. It's definitely not. No, we're killing at least 100,000 Americans each year. So that's why you have to learn all this. I'm sorry to put it all on your shoulders, but I've given you some life-changing information in today's presentation, and I hope that you'll take the time to learn that there are all these estrogen mimics, and that we have natural answers that we can do with the zeolite, and the estrogen receptor is so exciting when you understand what I can do safely to men and women with a natural product from northern Thailand that has the lowest incidence of breast cancer in the world because it works on estrogen receptors. And you have estrogen receptors in your bones. So if you take my product, HRT, I not only protect your breast and your lung and your liver and your brain, but I also stop the bone loss, and you don't get the insomnia, and you don't get the depression, and you don't get the vaginal dryness. And across the board, we really have some powerful things that can make anything you thought you knew about how to age gracefully only 1/10 of the information you need, because you are not going to do it without something that safely takes care of, remember, it's FIGHH, hormones, heavy metals. The HH, the second one, is the whole story of hormones that you need, and that's why we have Beyond Growth hormone support, and that's why many people buy melatonin. But how am I going to reduce your risk of breast cancer? Well, it's all on here. Meditation, cleanse your liver. This whole country is loaded with people that don't understand when you're sick. In France, they understand cri de foie means crisis of the liver. And so they'll start thinking, what am I going to do to take the stress off my liver? Do I want some milk thistle? Do I want some high-dose C? What am I going to do? I'm now using my magnetic therapy, this wonderful PEMF device that I'll be teaching at the training for the public and doctors, March the 3rd to March 7th. You come, we'll treat you and teach you a lot more of these things. I'll be lecturing every day during those 5 days, and you can be there for one day for $100 or for all 5 days as a doctor for $475. So this is the soy story, and that gets into some of these other things that we're teaching you about. I just spent some exciting time with Christiane Northrup. Her book is extremely valuable, and what she has taught us is that when your liver is so toxic, as good as my HRT is, taking it just by mouth is not enough. We're going to have to do intravaginal, because then I bypass your sick liver, because most of you aren't ready to start doing a lot of far infrared saunas to get a lot of sweating, and you're not even ready to get the power drink. Most people don't do all the crazy things I do until all your health is gone, but since my health was gone at age 29, I've had time to think about Pueraria mirifica. That stands for miracle herb, and what it is doing for all of us is extremely important. You need to be on high-dose D, vitamin D, 5,000 a day. It's an extremely important part of the program. There's an epidemic of D deficiency. Get on it. Don't go a day without it. And this is just one of the many hospitals in Mexico run by Francisco Contreras. He's doing a great job. But we have the Reardon Clinic in Wichita, Kansas, doing a great job. You don't have to leave the country to be treated, but I appreciate Dr. Contreras very much, because he does the oxidative therapy, and he has an FDA-approved study to show to you what his 3, 4, 5-year survivals are, and you will see rapidly that his 3-year survival, if you were conventional, you would be 32 years, and if you were not conventional, you would have been on his program. 75% of the patients are alive after 3 years. So it doesn't make any difference which cancer you look at. If you take mainstream, you got 3% of you are alive in 3 years, 41%. But so you can see why I don't like mainstream cancer therapy. This is an excellent book that explains why I have everybody taking Wobenzyme 3 times a day once you are known to have failed a cancer test, because it does all these things with $50 million of research from the Mucos company in Germany. It is extremely well documented, and I thank all of you for your attention today. There is